good afternoon. How's it going, everyone? I hope you're doing well out there. If you're on the East Coast, I hope you're staying safe, as we're currently dealing with a series of forest fires right now. So right now when I leave my house, it usually smells like someone's hosting a bonfire. Although rather than being cozy and fun, it's the complete opposite. So again, if you're being affected by it, I hope you're staying safe. If you're new here, hi, I'm Miles. I do music stuff. And I'm coming to you today to discuss a problem, an issue that every guitar player ever has to deal with at some point in their career. I'm speaking, of course, of the plight of every guitar player. And if you hate these hyperbolic sort of titles to videos and stupid thumbnails, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the like button, because I hate doing that stuff. I'd rather be authentic with you guys. And yeah, the soy face stuff is usually what gets people to come and click on a video. But if you're doing it just because you want to support, that makes it a lot easier to stay legit. Okay, sorry. Last week I had the extreme fortune to be able to go and see not only Daivd Gilmour go and perform at Madison Square Garden, but then go and see Elvis Costello, both in the same week. Elvis playing at a very small venue. I even got to get a fist bump from him at one point while he was walking through the crowd, which had a hot moment of being like, but I kept it cool. And both shows were great, but obviously the Daivd Gilmour show was a lot more guitar oriented, focusing on material from his new album they just recently put out, as well as obviously playing some select Pink Floyd tunes in varying capacities. But with all that said, one of the things that I noticed while watching the performance was an issue that comes up a lot for me personally as a guitarist who goes out and performs with varying artists, but also as a guitar teacher, as a point of notice to direct my students to focus in on. And this is the idea of the often overlooked concept of being trapped in a repeat chord progression. Like, primarily this is in reference to the idea of playing a guitar solo over the same series of chords over and over and over and over, and trying to maintain something that is still interesting for you as a player, interesting for everyone else that you're playing with, and is going to be captivating for the audience as well. Because on its face, in whatever key you're in, you only have a certain selection of notes that are complementary to that key. You can incorporate other ones in there, but if you're not used to the sound of those notes in relation to the chords that are within the key signature that you're playing in, you're going to interpret it as wrong and try to correct it in that moment. That's what most people do impulsively. There's also the issue of the G string just always managing to make an appearance at the least opportune time while you're playing. And while with an artist like Elvis Costello, there's less of a focus on guitar virtuosity, he is still the frontman and singer of all these songs that he's performing, and him and Daivd Gilmour are in their 70s. Daivd Gilmour is 78 years old, which means that there's been a long time that these guys have been performing these songs. And if you have ever been in a position where you have music that you're expected to play in order to please the audience that is coming out to support you at your show, it can get a little repetitive after a while, and you want to find ways to vary it up. With Elvis Costello, otherwise known as Declan McManus, because majority of what people know him for as an artist is his vocals on top of the songs, along the song composition itself, he's able to add variation to how he's singing the songs, and as long as it's not too outlandish, everyone's still on board as far as the audience is concerned. But with an artist like Daivd Gilmour, especially if he's playing a song from Pink Floyd where it's got a iconic guitar solo that's like ingrained in the skulls of everyone that's in the audience at each of the shows, you have the daunting task of either playing the solo exactly the way that it's been recorded on the record, or trying to deviate from that, potentially causing the audience to say, oh, maybe you don't know how to play the song anymore. And I think an aspect of this concept has to do with being an artist that's getting older, because we are very critical of people in pop culture as performers as they get older. Another recent example of this sort of thing would be Stevie Nicks when she was recently on Saturday Night Live. But we won't focus too much on that aspect of things. Right now we're focusing on the idea of what you could do from a musical standpoint to avoid being in this position where you're either playing all the same notes in the same order every single time that you're playing them, versus finding yourself in a position where you want to expand on this already established idea, but are unsure of what to do that's going to be compelling to anyone listening to you. If we zoom a little bit further in on someone like David Gilmour, he's very much one of these guitar players that is heavily rooted in the pentatonic scale and utilizing that framing for how he's going about playing the phrases that he's putting into his solos. With students of mine, I've used the example of the Pink Floyd song Shine On You Crazy Diamond as an example of David Gilmour using the same group of notes, G minor pentatonic, but in this case over 3 different octaves. The real substance of David Gilmour's playing comes from the expression that is built from bending of notes and sustaining of notes. So it's got more of a vocal quality, and really his guitar solos are sort of like a song within the song. And there are other players like this, but I feel like they are less successful when it comes to utilizing this sort of framing in an improvisational manner. An artist that comes to mind for me is someone like Carlos Santana. He's painfully pentatonic. And what I mean by that is go and listen to what he's playing on the song Smooth, or go listen to that song he did with Michelle Branch, Game of Love, or the other song that's definitely not Smooth, the one that's called Move, featuring Rob Thomas. Listen to what he's playing on there, and you tell me where the definitive variation is, and it's not that it's in a different key. And as I'd said before, an option that you can take as far as breaking out of that box of the same material is to branch outside of your comfort zone and do some different stuff, add some new notes. But you got to be comfortable doing that. If you look at jazz players, they're utilizing a lot of chromaticism in their playing, as well as other musical ideas that if you're trying to implement that on the fly, if you don't know how it relates to what it is that you're playing over, it's not going to sound right, or at least it's not going to sound like you're doing it with conviction. An example with Gilmour is that he's switching things up when I saw him playing the solo for Comfortably Numb, and he's not doing it in its original form from the record, which I wouldn't expect him to at this point. However, the audience is like not really engaged with it because they know that he's playing a solo for this song. They're like, here we go. It's about to get crazy. And then he goes off the grid a bit, still staying within the sort of tonal box of the key of B minor. But then the moment comes where he hits that high B. And everyone's like, ooh, ooh. And they're anticipating him going up to D, holding that out and going back down and playing the remainder of the structure of the solo before on the record it fades out. But he doesn't do that. And in the case of David Gilmour, frankly, he can do whatever he wants. Like, David Gilmour can play 3 songs in his set and then take an intermission for like a half hour, and people will stick around You know how I know? It's because that's exactly what he did. Which is fine. If I was in my 70s, I'd probably do the same thing. I'd probably say, you know, I gotta go to the bathroom. And like, just do that. Like if you were to take someone like Guthrie Govan and give him a chord progression, a backing track to just play over for like 9 minutes, just solo for 9 straight minutes, he will not play a single phrase the same as he did before. Because he knows how to compose around the limitations of a key signature. And the other aspect that goes along with this is also just rhythmic variation in terms of the notes that you're using as well. Like a good way to practice this sort of thing is just to find yourself a backing track that is kind of like staying on 4 static chords. So you're just there in that key, in this box, and you have to stay there for the entire duration of time that you're playing. But you're trying to put together a composition of notes that can stand on its own, rather than just like running up and down the scales, because no one wants to hear that. But to take it a step further, take that same idea and whittle it down to just 1 chord. So something that would be similar to a sort of James Brown scenario where you have an extended period of time where you're just staying over 1 chord and there's no other movement. But you got James pointing to you on stage saying, go. And if you mess up, he then shouts, 5, because he just deducted $5 from your pay. And you don't want that. But I've had those gigs where I've gone out and played with an R&B band and we're just staying on 1 chord for an extended period of time. And very quickly, you can get to a place where you look down at your hands, you look down at your guitar and you say, what else can I do? And I've mentioned this in previous videos before, but a trick that I learned from Guthrie Govan is to learn the thematic information of like pop culture, musical ideas, like the theme for Pink Panther or for GoldenEye, stuff like that. If you throw that in, that's a musical idea that is a melody all on its own, and that your audience will hear it and say, oh, okay. And up to this point, this has all been framed from the standpoint of maintaining sort of like strictly musicality, like using what we know as far as scales and intervallic relationships between notes. But then there's the other approach. You could take the more flashy approach, the Chuck Berry, the Van Halen, the Prince approach. I bring up Prince because I want you to go and take a look at his solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps. It's a solo that a lot of people cite as one of the best guitar solos ever recorded, ever played. And for me personally, and I'm saying sorry now to my mom because she's a Prince super fan, and she's probably gonna like smack me with a shoe or something next time she sees me, but the solo's mid. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. But if you chop out all the flair of him doing the tremolo picking on the high E string and then doing quick hammer-ons, or bending a note and falling into the crowd, all that extra flair and flash, that cuts like half the solo out of what he's doing. And obviously there's players like Eddie Van Halen, who was able to be super flashy, but still have there be this ebb and flow structure to his improvised version of an established solo, something like Eruption, where he can elongate it and do all this different stuff. And it could be for like 10 minutes, but people are still ready and willing to listen to what he's doing. And so realistically, there's room to do more technical things and be more expansive with your musical approach to any given solo, without being a full-on janitor and just like going into full sweep mode. But for a man that's in his 70s like David Gilmour, I guess the other side of the coin is you have to ask yourself, does he care to dress it up more? Like, there was a recent video from Rick Beato talking about why David Gilmour would never come on his show. And the truth is, David Gilmour doesn't need a YouTuber. He can go on Jimmy Fallon if he wants to promote his record or something like that. Talk about music that he's written and played. But when it comes to playing over the chords of a song that you've written and you're playing a solo in that song, it's clear that he has a need to switch it up and do something different just to keep it interesting for himself. Otherwise, what's the point? So clearly it shows that guys like David Gilmour and Elvis Costello, they still have a motivation to want to keep this material that is years and decades old, keep it fresh for them every night that they're going out to play it. So you as a player, myself as well, we should be motivated to do the same with our own playing and our own compositions, just to keep it from being the same thing regurgitated every time we get asked to go out and play. So hopefully I offered you some suggestions that you can put to good use in terms of that stuff. But if you want examples of what you can do to structurally add variation to your playing in like video form, I got you. I'll put that here. I think it goes over here. I don't know. It's going to be on the screen. You'll see. You'll see. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for now. I hope you found this video to be interesting and informative. And if you haven't already, like I told you to do before, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It's free. What are you doing? Do it now. And if you like what I'm doing here and you want to help support the channel further than just liking and subscribing, I'll leave a link down below in the description to my Patreon, where you can check out the perks that are attached over there. And yeah, you should do that because it helps. It helps make these videos possible. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe. With all that said, friends, I appreciate your time. I will be seeing you very soon. I have some other videos that I'm going to be putting out very soon. So yeah, you guys stay safe, drink some water, and yeah, talk to you soon. Okay, keep playing. Peace.